So I guess you mentioned earlier on that you've returned to school and PE's a lot different. Tell us what's different.
Yeah, so for us, due to the year groups being in bubbles and in different sides of the school and different areas, we're having to go and pick up the pupils and then drop them back off to their areas, which just decreases some of the time that we get in terms of inside the lessons. And due to a lot of the changes that were happening in the school, we've now gone from double lessons, which were 2-hour lessons at Key Stage 3, down to 55-minute lessons twice a week. So, we're finding that we've only actually, by the time we get the pupils changed, because unfortunately our school haven't approved allowing the pupils to come in with their PE kit at certain times in the day. So that's another challenge. So we're getting like half an hour to do lessons, and due to obviously pupils being so inactive over such a long period, we just want to make the lessons as active as possible. So there's a lot of game-based activities, and there's more focus on tactics rather than doing a lot of skill-based stuff, because we just don't have the time, where possible. Getting pupils to kind of lead little parts of the sessions themselves and come up with some, mini practices, so to speak, is quite good. And the kids have engaged really well with that, but just trying to make it as active as possible. Just to get back into some level of activity.
And what sort of things have you been doing on the curriculum? What sports have you been playing so far?
So to be honest, we've gone with whatever the Sport England and the Department for Education have allowed. I guess we're playing some team games, but not allowing kind of contact, so to speak. So football, but I was telling pupils you're not allowed to tackle, only interceptions. Just to avoid, even though the school have permitted that they're safe to actually have contact, and so have the DFE, due to them being in their bubbles, so they are mixing anyway. But we've still just tried to limit as much contact as possible. So, it makes sense to us, and I think it's what everyone feels most comfortable with.
And what about external coaches coming in? I know you've benefited from some coaches from RFU coming in before and sort of across other sports. What's the school policy on that at the moment?
Yeah, unfortunately, they've said that at the moment they don't feel comfortable having external members of staff in due to some potential cases, staff and some students already having to go off and self-isolate due to possible symptoms of COVID. So they just want to kind of keep it as tight knit as possible, I guess, in these uncertain times, especially where the government keep telling us to be quite fluid, but week in, week out, there's so many different changes that are happening. 1 week you're allowed to do a certain thing, the next you're not. So I think everyone's just trying to be as cautious as possible. So but in terms of any I guess competition-based sports or team activities externally with anyone from other schools also hasn't been permitted as of yet. But we have had contact with you guys, for instance, and Blackheath Schools football, and just to get an idea of what schools are feeling comfortable with. But it looks like nothing this side of Christmas is going to take place for too much contact or any contact with externals.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned before that you're having to plan sort of for you in your time as well. You're having to plan sort of double lessons at the minute, sort of for pupils that are on site and then pupils that are remote as well. So your time is just more pressured than ever.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it is quite odd that we've got some pupils that are needing that support, but it's quite difficult because you're having to use Google Classrooms. You have to use emails. We're starting to do video lessons, which the school are constantly trialing, because obviously being in inner city London, there's a higher risk element, and a possible closure, could be imminent. That's my personal opinion. Yeah. But we're obviously trying to prepare as best we can to ensure that transition from any period of having to isolate and be in school is as fluid and smooth as possible, I guess.
Yeah. And you sort of going back, you mentioned that it's not possible for external coaches from rugby clubs to come in at the moment.
Yeah.
What support can clubs provide you as sort of PE staff at the moment? Bearing in mind they can't come in, what things would you want them to be able to do to really help you to deliver rugby or to get players playing in local rugby clubs?
To be honest, I think one of the reasons our programs run quite well is because our partnership club with Old Colfians has been quite a strong link, I believe. We've had some students, they offer us opportunities for external training at no cost for the pupils, etc. So I can't really ask for too much more. The coaches have always come in and enjoyed working with our kids. Our kids have always enjoyed working with them. A lot of our problem, if I'm honest, is that we're a Catholic school, and a lot of our pupils are at church on Sundays and can't actually attend for those kind of reasons. So parents are a little bit, I guess, sidetracked in that front. But any pupils that have really got into rugby, it's been quite good, and we use it quite. I find it's quite good for our year 7s to start with rugby, because it's quite a good disciplined game. So it's good to to get them involved quite early, and a lot of our kids coming from inner city London environments and settings haven't really experienced too much rugby. So for us the program has worked because we're just giving them a totally new experience that they've never had, which is nice.
A lot of feedback we've had from rugby clubs is that they've tried to get in contact with PE staff who have either left, who are busy, whose emails don't work at the moment.
Yeah.
What sort of advice can you give to a rugby club that have got something that they want to offer the PE staff on how they would get in touch and sort of make it easier for you guys?
To be honest, I think it's quite heavily dependent on the PE department and how they can kind of communicate with the head teacher to potentially get members of staff in, because I don't think there's anything better for our kids, especially that the one-to-one interaction with the coaches has been paramount to a really effective program, I guess, at the school. So it's just about getting the approval, but I just think schools are really, really kind of hesitant to allow just rugby because of the contact nature and the stigma that so much contact. I think that's one of the key problems, really, that schools are just tentative to allow pupils to play rugby at the minute or have any contact with external members of staff or external pupils from other schools. I hope that does relax a little bit. Everyone's hoping by Christmas, because everyone's chomping at the bit to do fixtures and things like that and have external coaches in, because a lot of schools I know have coaches that come out from other schools quite regularly through like greenhouse and things like that, and they're not being allowed to come into school. Teachers knew a bit more about the program that you've been speaking about. I think it would be quite good, and I'll definitely look to see if we can add it to the program for after half term in some way, shape or form.
And is that the biggest thing sort of from us? Talked about clubs, sort of from our side as RFU, is that kind of the biggest support that we can give you at the minute? Almost like, here's some stuff that you can do, it's approved by DFE.
That's it. Yeah, right. Literally as simple as that, I guess. And like you said, I'm quite glad to hear that Old Colfians have already requested to come in and do some coaching at some point, because hopefully after Christmas we'll be able to do that, and we can offer it to our Key Stage 3 pupils, and hopefully some of our Key Stage 4, just depending on how much coaching we can get. But myself, I'm a lot more confident at coaching rugby and teaching rugby and stuff. So, and some of our staff have gone on as well and about it, and so it'll be good to get more sports on the program of study for the year for us, definitely, and hopefully full rugby at some point can. If not, rugby ready will have to suffice.
Yeah,